Your heart is the support system for every organ in your body. The brain can't function without the heart pumping. The liver can't quiver when the heart has no rhythm. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your heart. Matters of the Heart podcast is a safe space for you to face the true matters of your heart. The issues that causes stress even when you're seemingly at rest. Issues like hurt, pain, betrayal, and shame are things that are buried alive in the back of the brain. I call them undiagnosed heart traumas. Others refer to them as heartbreak, when in fact it's heartache because the heart can't break. I know, sounds pretty interesting to hear, but you'll learn more as you enter in and allow the healing to begin. I'm Natasha Mayo, the execution strategist. Welcome to Matters of the Heart. Hello, hello, hello. Every delay is in my favor. Listen, I know you guys were looking for me at 12:30. I was looking for me at 12:30. However, time didn't permit. There were some schedule conflicts, but I am here right now, live and in color. Listen, guys, you can't allow things, to frazzle you. You have to know that every delay is in your favor. So even if it's seemingly out of order or disarray, everything is in your favor. I'm Natasha Mayo, the execution strategist. I help high achieving professionals go from good to great in every area of their lives. What does that mean exactly? Oftentimes, high achieving professionals, they develop themselves professionally, but they leave their personal selves to fend for itself. And so once the rubber meets the road, they have sometimes nothing to fall back on other than that profession that they've developed. And so I help them go from good to great in their personal lives and their personal selves. I like to say in their personal soul. And as a result of that, they are able to live an unlimited life in every area of their lives. And so, guys, I am going to jump right to it. You guys know that I like interaction. I'm not here to talk at you, but I'm here to talk to you and with you. So we're having a conversation today. I see you guys are entering in. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you for those that reached out and said, hey, I can't get on. Where are you? Or, hey, I'm looking forward to you coming on today. And so I'm here. So let me know that you're here. Let me know who you are and where you are tuning in from. You guys see the subject, and you've been saying it all week. I've been sharing it all week, and I've been talking about developing your disciplines. As I mentioned, I help high achieving professionals go from good to great. What I find the disconnect is that they grow when they develop in their professional lives, meaning they get promotions, they go on to do greater things, but their discipline is typically at the same place it was when they started. And so I'm here to dismantle, not only disrupt, but to dismantle the misnomer of every new level, there's a new devil. Come on. We all have said that at some point or time in our lives. I am guilty of it myself. But when you know better, you do better. And so I am here to help you tune in, to help you identify and then expose the enemy. I'm going to say that again. To expose the enemy. Now that sounds a little harsh, right? Nobody wants to say that the enemy is within them. But when you make decisions that derail your destiny, that's an enemy. And it's so easy to put that off to somebody else, what we call the devil, when actually it's the actions that we have placed on ourselves. I'll give you a prime example. Years ago, I was traveling with two individuals, and we decided to take our time and get to the airport. When we got there, we are thinking, oh, 30 minutes, 45 minutes is enough time. Nobody needs to get to the airport 2 hours, 3 hours in advance. How many of you guys can relate to that, even here and now? Well, we got there maybe 45 minutes early, and we left. They left us, right? They would not let us board the plane. They would not allow us to send our luggage. And of course, you know, immediately what happens? We tend to complain. We tend to find and place blame on everything and everyone else except ourselves. And so I had enough of the complaining and not owning that we missed the plane because we were late. We decided to get to the airport 45 minutes late or 45 minutes ahead of time when they clearly told us to get there 3 hours early. And so the enemy is not always busy unless it's the inner me within you. And so let's begin to identify what is the enemies in us, internally within us. And so let us know where you're tuning in from and who's here. I want to know who's here. When you enter somebody's home, you say hello. So you've entered my space. Say hello. I want to hear from you. I want to see who I'm talking to so that I can talk back. Actually, if I turn on my comments, I'll be able to see who's tuning in, right? Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time and your attention. And so let's get right to it. The inner me in the me. When you are promoted or launch into new levels, new promotions, there is a discipline that must go with you. It must really go ahead of you, but you have to begin to disciple your discipline for where you're going, not where you've been. I mentioned earlier on a post this morning that when mastery becomes mediocre, it's a result of you not discipling your discipline for where you're going. You have willed your way to a certain place, and so you think that you can will your way to that next destination. You can't. You can't will your way into the things and the places that God is calling you to in this season. It's very similar to having a baby, right? And so, you know, there's a first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, and on and on and on, right? Well, not on and on, but there are multiple trimesters. And so each and every trimester have specific things that happen in that trimester. And if something isn't developed within that trimester, then something is either delayed or denied in later trimesters. And so the same is so with your disciplines. As God has now elevated your skill set, your discipline needs to be able to keep up with it, right? And I start with saying keep up with it, but it really needs to be ahead of it. And so the reason being is because you'll get to a place when your discipline is not developed for that new dimension, and you'll begin to second guess yourself. You'll begin to say things like, am I supposed to be here? Have I made a mistake? God, you said XYZ. Am I even worthy for such a position? You are. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are definitely worthy for the place and the position where you are. The disconnect, the frustration, and the irritation is as a result of your not developing your disciplines for where you are now and where you are growing. And so you guys have all heard this, is you got to go back to the basics. You got to go back to the basics. Somewhere along the way, you have missed some basic steps. And while you've been able to grow and develop, these steps that are missed have now become weak links. They've become weak. And because you're so sure and strong in other steps, it's been able to mask and in some cases even cover up those areas that are weak. Well, here's the thing. They're now uncovered. That frustration, that irritation that you may be feeling now is uncovered weak links. I want you to take a moment right now and identify some areas that are weak links in your discipline. Now, here's the thing. Everything isn't weak. You got some things that are extremely strong, but then there's some things that are weak. They're beginning to break. They're beginning to tear. They're beginning to rust. And so I want you to take a moment to self-identify what are those weak links in the disciplines that I need. Again, I'll use me for an example. I have somebody clean my home, right? Here's one of the things that I do. If there's anything that I can do and benefit from somebody else doing it, I will make the investment. I can't benefit from somebody working out for me and then I get the benefits, right? So I have to work out myself. I can get the benefits of somebody else cleaning my house and then I come and enjoy the fruit of their labor, right? What I realized in that is that my discipline wasn't being developed in keeping and sustaining the cleanliness. You got it? And so while somebody was able to come and assist, because I relied so much on their assistance, my discipline in that area began to rust. It began to become a weak link because I'm now relying on somebody else to do something that I need to do. So what are those things that you are relying on somebody else to do for you? Had a great conversation earlier regarding the air traffic controller and how the pilot is required to go through the same exact checklist every single time before they hit that runway. Now, it's easy to say, I have been looking at this checklist 20 years. I know what to do. Many of us operate in our lives like that today. But if a pilot get in the air and has not gone over that checklist, they can be in midstream and be missing something because they didn't check the checklist before departing. You don't ever want to be in midstream and need something on the ground. I'm going to say that again. You don't ever want to be in midstream and need something that's on the ground. And so you have to develop your discipline to make sure that no matter what stream you're on or in, you are ready because you discipled your discipline over and over and over and over again. In fact, in 1 Thessalonians, it talks about doing things again and again and again and again, because that's where the strength is developed and then ultimately sustained. And so you may be thinking, okay, well, if I get up in mid-air, I have, air traffic controller that I can call on or, phone a friend and all those good things. But you don't ever want to rely on somebody's greatness for you. I'm going to say that again. You don't want to ever rely on somebody else's greatness for you. So what are those inner enemies that you've allowed to rule and reign in your life? What are those things? What have you once been a master at that now has become mediocre? And here's the thing, you know it. You know it. You know that I used to do XYZ like this. Now I don't. It's a funny story. Years ago, my mom came in I like to call it a quiet storm sometimes, but she came in and she said, I remember you would not leave the house without looking like $1,000,000. And she said, now you leave the house and I don't know what's going on. And so I thought about it. And the moment I turned around to respond to her, and she was gone. And so the reality of it is, it was true, because I had come to a place where it was, I don't need to do all of that. But you do. You got to constantly disciple your discipline so that it's strengthened when you need it. When you need it. So, what is it that you need to help propel you in this season? I was getting ready to say the next season. What is it that you need to propel you in this season? You see, when you're able to identify what it is, the answer accompanies it. So you don't have to ever worry about figuring out what to do. Just identify what needs to be done. Remember, I said go back to the basics. Basics are things that are already completed. You just became familiar. You simply became comfortable with it that you began to miss it. So when you go back to the basics, they are already in their finished state. Good God from Zion. It's already in its finished state. So all you have to do is go back to the basics. Some of you guys often say, oh, those were the good old days. Do you know that better days are ahead of you? They're simply good old days to you because you operated in some mastery. You operated in some confidence. You operated in dimensions that you no longer see now. And so those were the good old days for you. Can I challenge you to go back to the basics and begin to implement some things from the good old days into today for greater days? You see, good is never good enough. It's never good enough because better is always available. All you have to do is avail yourself to the opportunity of better, and it will manifest. I'm going to say that again. Avail yourself to the opportunity of better, and it will manifest. It'll manifest, literally. And so, what are some of your things, guys? What are some of your things, those areas where you know you've fallen behind, and those areas where you've allowed to lie dormant, those areas where you have flat out said, you know what? I don't want to deal with that today. And then today becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. Let's begin to disciple those areas. What does a disciple do? A disciple does a few things. But one of the things that disciples do is that they listen. They receive instruction and then they execute. They listen, they receive instruction, and then they execute. In their execution, they're able to teach others by executing in the things that they've listened to. Can I challenge you to go back to the basics and disciple the disciplines of things that are already in place? They're already in their finished state. They're already waiting for your arrival. Take that moment and see, where did I get off? What's different from the good old days to today? And do that one thing consistently. Build that muscle. Do 1 rep, do 2 reps, do 3 reps, and then on and on and on. Every new level is not a new devil. It requires a new level of discipline. And for some of you guys, it's a new dimension of discipline. Well, what is the difference, Tasha, between levels and discipline? I'm so glad you asked. Levels are steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're good. Dimensions are leaps. 5, 10, 15, 25. You see the difference? So some of you guys are ready to leap and you're still taking steps. Some of you guys are ready to go to the next level and you're stuck in yesterday's discipline. It shows up in your second guessing. It shows up in frustration. It shows up in irritation. It shows up in isolation. I'm helping you guys to self-identify where the need to develop your discipline is. If you're irritated, frustrated, isolated, you need to develop your discipline in those areas. What does that look like for you? What does that look like for you? Again, I will use myself, right? Transparency brings forth transformation. I'll use myself. Developing my discipline in compassion. Use something very, very, very simple, if you will. Something that most people, it's the first nature for them to be compassionate. At one point, it wasn't for me if you weren't operating in a particular realm. What is that realm? Execution. If I give you the tools, I'm expecting you to execute. Why wouldn't you? Right? That was my train of thought. I've given you the tools. Why wouldn't you execute? All you have to do is follow ABC 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, that's not the case for some people. That execution isn't one of their strengths, right? One of my clients, I love the way she says it, that certain things aren't a motivated strength for her. And so while I'm looking for you to execute, that may not be your motivated strength. And so I had to develop compassion in that area. I had to develop my discipline in compassion over and over and over again. That was an area that was a weak link. It was a rusted link in my life. And so I had to work at the muscle and still working at the muscle of compassion. To now, it's becoming first nature. And so, what is an area for you that needs discipline? That needs to be developed, that needs to be discipled, that needs accountability, right? It's that thing where you may think it's unsupervised, but it's very supervised because it shows up when the going gets tough, when the heat is on. The heat is on. The heat is on, right? It shows up. I can immediately identify areas that people need to develop their discipline in a heated situation, including myself. Including myself. And so Kristen says, develop my discipline and compassion. So, Chris, I don't know if you were repeating me or you're also saying that you need to develop your discipline and compassion. And then Anthony is saying, in self-confidence, believe that I'm worth the value. Yes, absolutely. Because what happens is, especially with a value situation, right? Those are great points. And a lot of people actually struggle with value and self-worth. And the reason why they are challenged with that is because of a learned behavior that they have learned all of their life. Literally, like people of influence in your life have been ones that have been, okay, that's okay, or I'll do this for that. And so you've picked that up in your environment and then you operate in it, right? That's one of the ways how that happens. And then from that develops your self-confidence. Here's the thing. People are going to believe at the level that you believe in yourself. So whatever level you believe in yourself is the level that people are going to go back and believe in you at your level. Same is so with compassion. Same is so with execution. Same is so with integrity. Whatever level you believe is what you are going to receive. You see, people, I hear people say, like, you'll always have fear. People that always have fear are undisciplined in that belief system about fear. You won't always have fear. God is very clear when he said, fear not. Fear not. So why would you always have fear when God said, fear not? It all goes back to trust. Who do you believe? Do you believe the skill set that you've developed? Do you believe your own self, or do you believe God? And so it quickly identifies that they believe in themselves when fear shows up. Fear was designed to protect you in a situation of danger. Fear has now been perverted for you not to move when God clearly has told you to move. How is it that you believe that God says, go, and then on the other hand, you believe that he's saying no? God is not schizo. God is not going to tell you to go and then say no. That's your belief system. That's your trust within yourself. God said that I did not give you the spirit of fear, but a spirit of love, a spirit of peace, and a spirit of a sound mind, not a spirit of, and a sound mind. How is confusion a sound mind? And so you have to believe exactly what God said about you. The disconnect in that is most people don't know what God said about them. One, and then two, they don't spend enough time with God to really get a revelation of what he said. God says that I'm the head and not the tail. Okay, God, can you help me rightly divide that word of truth? He said that I'm the lender and not the borrower. Okay, God, can you break that down to me like a 5-year-old? He said that I'm above only and never beneath. Okay, what does that look like, God? You see, God will give you whatever you ask for, but you're not asking. You may seek just enough to say you did, but you're not seeking and surrendering. Surrender what, Tasha? Surrender your belief system. Surrender your way of doing things. Surrender this worked in the past. Can I tell you something? What worked, ED, is not working. It was for a previous season. And so if you continue to stay tethered to what worked, You'll always be frustrated. You'll always be irritated. You'll always be looking back thinking about the good old days. When God has called you to greater. God has called you to greater. And so will you agree with God? Will you, at the very least, agree one thing that he says about you? At least one thing. And so you are where you are. And here's the thing. It could be better than where you've been. It could be better than anybody that's in your sphere of influence. And that's oftentimes where people get caught up because they're where they are and it's better than the people that they are around. And they're like, I have arrived. You haven't. There's more. In 2016, I had worked like a racehorse. I'm sorry, not 2016. In 2009, I had worked like a racehorse. You guys know my story, and I won't go in great detail, of it. But in 2009, I was almost 300 pounds. I was going to work at 9 a.m., leaving at 12 a.m., working my way up to the executive level, and I did all of that. I got the property where it needed to be and beyond, and I literally leaned back in my chair at work, crossed my leg, and I said, finally, I can coast. And in that same breath, in that same moment, God said, who told you that? Who told you that you can coast? He said, your work is finished here. And I literally got an attitude. I said, God, you mean to tell me that I have did all of this work for somebody else to come reap the fruit of my labor? He said, your work is finished here. You see, I was still operating in old disciplines, in the thought that all I have to do was work to a certain level and then I'd be able to coast. And God said, your work is done here. There's more. But at that time, I had reached a pinnacle that nobody in my family had ever reached. I was living the blessed kind of life at the level that I envisioned. Hear me, follow me, please. You see, exposure creates expansion. And so I have been exposed to this particular level. At that time, it was 6 figures. And I had met that pinnacle. And so, now I can coast. And God said, not so, there's more. But I was basing that off of my environment, right? I was basing that off of what nobody else in my family had done. And so that was good for me. But thank God, one, that I have a relationship with him and I obey him on demand, kicking and screaming, but I obey him on demand because he said there's more. And so it's easy for you to get in a place and feel like you're great. It has provided a certain lifestyle for you. But just like God told me in 2009, I am going to tell you now, there's more. If God, and we know he has gotten you here, can he not get you to the next place? I recall being at one of my retreats with my business clients. And God began to share. And one of the things that he said was, have I not been faithful? Have I not been consistent in your life? Have I not kept you in the midnight hour of your life? What makes you think I am going to stop being God now? And so don't allow fear to grip you by you hanging on to those old disciplines, those things that got you where you are, but they won't take you and sustain you for where you'll need to be. You see, when you operate in old disciplines, you won't be able to see God's hand at work because of frustration and irritation and isolation. You'll feel like, woe, it's me. Why me, God? Or you may not even say, why me, God? You may just say, why me? I don't want to do it. You'll have adult tantrums. When God has placed you in that very space for a specific reason. But because you haven't developed your discipline, you're not able to even see God in it or even hear his voice on how to move through it. So you got to develop your discipline for where you're going, for where you're growing. It's not by happenstance that you're where you are. But in order to sustain it and continue to grow to new dimensions, you must, all caps with no cap, disciple your discipline consistently over and over and over again. Check out that 1 Thessalonians 4 when he talks about do it again, and do it again. Faith comes by hearing, not having heard, but hearing. So as a consistent, actionable faith. One of my friends told me the other day, she said that I have faith that is always in action. I don't just have faith. I have faith that's always in action. Yes, Chris, God has called you to greater. Will you agree with him? And not just agree with him in word, yes, Lord, I receive, or yes, Lord, I agree. But I want you to say, yes, Lord, in your movement. I want you to say, yes, Lord, in your obedience. I want you to say, yes, Lord, in the uncomfortable areas of your life. Yes, Lord. It's a complete yes. So what links have become weak? What areas need to be strengthened? Opportunity will always present itself. The question is, will you participate in the process? Or will you settle for what you have? You get to choose. You get to choose. Where are you? Locate yourself. And I'm telling you to do everything that I do. When I'm frustrated, when I'm irritated, I know it immediately. And I begin to commune with God and say, God, I don't like that. What is that? Show me what's seemingly hidden in plain view. Because the quicker that you can get outside of irritation and frustration and isolation, you can hear the voice of God for clarity and direction. He said that I've already given you everything that pertains to life and godliness. He's already provided the way of escape. But your lack of discipline keeps you running back to desolation. Don't let it. It's a choice. Every new level is not a new devil. It's simply notifying you that, you need to discipline this area. That's what it is. You know, we love our notifications on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We like, oh, somebody notified me or somebody tagged me in something. Well, I'm tagging you now in discipline. That area where you're frustrated, that area that you're second guessing yourself, that area where you're in isolation about, here's the notification, discipline it. disciple it. That's the enemy. It's that thing that you keep saying it's the devil. Is it the devil within? You see, this is big girl, big boy stuff. When you can self-identify the enemies that are within, that's when you go to new dimensions. Do y'all remember my explanation? Dimensions are leaps and levels are steps. We all have to go through both. You just don't come out the womb leaping. So you have to have those steps. But then eventually you start to leap. That's that acceleration that God promised. But your discipline has to be in proper alignment. Can we talk about illusion for a moment? What is illusion when it comes to discipline? What is illusion when it comes to our level or dimensions of living? Illusions are, we think we can do the same thing and get different results. We think we can name and claim it, but don't do any execution. Don't add any execution to the naming and claiming. That's illusion. That's a belief system that you have strengthened, but it goes absolutely nowhere other than irritation and frustration. Every new level requires a new dimension of discipline. What you once was a master in, you'll become mediocre in if you don't discipline it. Develop your discipleship in disciplining. Develop your discipleship in checking in self-awareness. Develop your discipleship in every area of your life. The quality of your life depends on the level of discipline that you operate in. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, can you put in the comment section where you are with your self-discipline? 1 being not disciplined at all, and 5 being I'm disciplined in every area of my life. 2 through 4 are I'm disciplined in some areas, but these specific areas I need to discipline. You see, when you're able to self-identify, again, the answer is within the identification. You don't have to figure things out on your own. You don't have to create something new. Oftentimes, what you need, you already have. It just needs to be disciplined. I have people that come to me and they say, oh, I know how to do this, or I know how to do that. Here's what I say about I know how, folks. If you did, you would be doing it. And so we do what we know. We don't do what we don't know. We may be familiar with these things, but we don't know them. You see, there's a difference with knowing and knowing. Let me break that down for you. There are some people where I can say, oh, yes, I know them, right? Social media is a great example. Oh, yes, I know Sean. We're Facebook buddies. And there's a completely different thing with, I know Kristen. We have this relationship. We are connected this way or that way. There's a difference with know and know, right? Like God said, I knew you. The very hair on your head, God knows. Versus, oh yeah, I think I know them. I remember them. So what you know and what you know are completely different. Remember, we do what we know, and we don't do what we don't know. So those things that you're not doing, you don't know. And that's okay. Own it. Now discipline it so you can dominate in it. I'm going to say that again. That was so good. Own it, discipline it, and then dominate in it. Disciple your discipline. It's not a new devil, it's a lack of discipline. The very things that you may be believing God for, that you're waiting for God for, is caught up in your discipline. It's almost like a spider in a web. It's caught in the web of discipline. And so the moment that you begin to operate in discipline, the things that you know needs to be disciplined, your answer, your clarity of vision will come quickly. It'll be an Amos situation. Y'all know Amos, where he talks about it'll happen so fast that it'll make your head spin. I am expecting Amos in my life every single day. Amos situations that it happens so fast it'll make my head swim. Why? Because I participate in the discipling of my discipline so that it's not held up by my disobedience. Jesus. Participate in the discipling of your discipline so that it's not held up by disobedience. That's so good right there. Because God can only bless us to the point of our obedience. He owns cattle on a hill. There should never be anything that we are without. If you are without, it's a result of a lack of discipline. It's a result of a lack of discipline. Because why would he give you the keys for you to mishandle? Why would he give you the keys? So you got to disciple your discipline at the next dimension. And I would love for you guys to get ahead of it, but we're going to start with where you are and then grow thereby. You got it? Start with where you are and then grow thereby. You see, Matters of the Heart podcast, God gave that to me in 2015. I began to receive downloads about Matters of the Heart podcast. In 2016, he gave me a whole agenda, whole layout. I had a lot of these broadcasts that we're now broadcasting now. I had that back in 2016. But I had to disciple and develop my discipline in areas before he would even release it. Yes, he gave me the idea. Yes, he gave me the vision. Yes, he gave me instruction. But what he didn't give was the go-ahead. You see, when God gives you something, there's no sorrow. There's no frustration. There's no irritation. It's grace and ease. And so I had to begin to disciple my discipline. I had to go back to the basics of some things. And guess what some of those things were for me? forgiveness. You see, some of you guys may be looking outside of yourself like, oh, I got to do this at work. And some of you do. Not discounting that at all. Some of you most certainly need to do some things at work, but guess what? It goes back to the inner you. So it may be an external thing that needs to be done, but it's an internal thing that needs to be disciplined. And so one of the things for me was forgiveness. How in the world are you going to be on a global platform talking about matters of the heart and yours is hard? You see, some of y'all don't want to deal with the truth of the matter. You see, I face my truth. I call them Goliaths. And so I do an introspect consistently of any Goliaths that show up, that manifest themselves in my life. And so how are you going to be speaking about matters of the heart with a hard heart? And so I had to begin to do the work internally. I had to begin to disciple my discipline. I had to begin to untether myself from belief systems that I had become one with. You know, we say, for God I live and for God I die, but do you really? You can't pick and choose who and how you want to love when you're talking about doing kingdom business. And so I had heart matters that I had to deal with. God began to tell me that you need to forgive them completely. I never knew that you could forgive incompletely. But there are stages, there are levels to forgiveness. And give yourself grace, guys. Give yourself grace in the forgiving space that's in your heart, because it's levels to this. Some people say they just forgive and forget. Good for you. I believe that's a special anointing. And I salute you. I honor it. That's amazing. But for me, it was levels to forgiveness. The first level was forgiving them in my heart to surrender the offense. That was the first level. The next level was that I need to be able to be in their space and not feel anything about them. The next level was that I need to be able to give them, if they ever needed anything from me, give it to them. The next level was to intercede on their behalf like it was my mama or a person that is of great influence to you. You see, there's levels to this. And so now that I have grown, I have discipled my discipline in those levels, I can now leap. I told y'all the difference with levels and dimensions. I'm on the dimension side, but I had to grow from the level side. And guess what? As I grew in my levels of forgiveness, so did my life. My life grew in levels. Hope y'all are getting this. See this connection. As you obey, your life will come along the way. And so now that I forgive in leaps, almost immediately, so does my life. My life leap. Because God is saying, now I can trust you at this dimension. I could trust you at levels before. Now I can trust you at this dimension because your heart is fixed on me and my business. Me as in God in my business. So there was levels to forgiveness for me. What is some of your areas that need discipline internally? That was one of mine. There are many, and I'm still growing in this thing in different stages, in different areas. Another level for me was abandonment. What do you do when you are abandoned? There's levels to this. You abandon others and not even know it. I had no clue that I was abandoning people. No clue that I was abandoning people. What does that look like, Tasha? I'm glad you asked. It looks like you being the first one to say, I'm out. Because you don't even want to deal with the aftershock of somebody else telling you that first. And so some of you guys wear it as a badge of honor. I did. And still have some remnants of it now. Because the truth should be told. You see, we're talking about new dimensions. You can't go to new dimensions with old wineskins, with old disciplines. And so let's deal with the real matters of the heart. I had made a covenant with exiting first that stemmed back to my daddy. And then it grew in my relationships. And here's the thing. There is an anointing on the gift of goodbye. It is. I operate, I execute in the gift of goodbye. However, it's not an anointing of dismissing and dismantling people. The anointing is the ability to move on without looking back like Lot's wife. That's the anointing of the gift of goodbye. That has even been perverted. That has even been brought down to layman terms. Again, there's levels to it. It took me time to figure that out. It took me time to get that divine revelation to not justify my actions, but to own them and judge my own judgment. Did you handle them properly? If not, go back and fix it. Again, big girl, big boy stuff. If y'all not ready to disciple your discipline at that dimension, you're not ready for the new level. You're not ready for the new dimension that you know God is calling you to. And so you'll hang out with old wineskins and you'll settle for frustration and putting it all to the devil. The devil is not omnipresent, guys. Will you stop giving him power that he does not have? The devil cannot be messing with you and then messing with your neighbor and messing with your cousin all at the same time. It can't. And so when you identify the enemy, then you're ready for your new dimension. You're ready for your next level. And here's the thing. If you miss something in one season, it will weaken the next season. You may graduate. You may get that new job. You may get that new whatever. But because you missed something in a season, it will weaken the next season if you go on. And guess what? Every lesson unlearned is repeated. So you're going to keep having those experiences over and over and over again until you get it. Yes, Robin, this is real matters of heart. This is real matters of the heart. And Kristen confirms, as you obey, your life will come with you. Absolutely. Can we deal with the true matters of the heart? Are we seeking our own gratifications? I made a post earlier today that it's easy to like who you like. It's easy to love who you love, but can you like the unlikable? Can you love the unlovable? Can you do things that are outside of your comfort zone? Disciple and develop your discipline so that you can enter in without stress, without strain, and without struggle consistently over and over and over again. It's not lifestyle, guys. It's life. Can I break that down for you like Holy Spirit gave to me? He said, this is not your lifestyle. Styles change. They become trends and eventually are weakened to nothing. He said that this is your life. It's not a style. And so discipling your discipline is your life. It's what you have to do over and over and over again. You see, every new level is a new level of discipline. I am going to say that over and over and over again until you get the misnomer of every new level. There's a new devil out of your system. The moment that you think every new level, there's a new devil, because it's going to take some unlearning for you to get it. I want you to say, what area do I need to disciple? Because that's what that is. I want you to quickly check yourself. Ask yourself the question. Ask God the question, what area needs to be disciplined? Because I think it's the devil. Where there are questions, there are answers. And so Robin says, can you talk more about how to get past not feeling anything when you forgive a person and yet come into their presence? Absolutely. And I love that Robin asked that question, guys. And this is for all of you. I'm here to talk to you, with you, not at you. And so if you got questions, put them in the feed. That's why I'm here, to help you break through in real time. Not in the sweet by and by. Not saying, oh, I'm going to go to heaven with them. That's silliness. And so the question on the table for those that are listening and can't see the questions, because the podcast is shared through multiple platforms. And so some of them you can't see, you'll just hear. And so for the sake of those that are listening, Robin says, can you talk more about how to get past not feeling anything when you forgive a person and yet come into their presence? Absolutely. I love that question. Thanks so much, Robin. It's actually an answer that I wished I had. But again, there's a reason that God takes us through allows us to go through different processes. And so the way that you disciple your discipline on forgiving somebody when you come into their presence is that you pray for them out of their presence. First, you forgive them in your heart. The moment that you recognize offense has presented itself. God says it's okay to be offended. He said, sin not. Be angry, but sin not. That's what offense is, okay? So stop beating yourself up about being offended. Stop beating yourself up about, unforgiveness. God said, be angry, sin not. So the moment you are offended, you feel some kind of way by somebody, whether it's betrayal, abandonment, whatever it is, there's not one limit of unforgiveness that's unforgivable. So whatever it is, forgive them in your heart immediately. Then I want you to begin to pray for them outside of their presence. I want you to simulate seeing them and how you are going to react. You see, the mind does not know the difference between real life and Memorex. And so when you simulate in your mind how you are going to react, that's what the body follows. And you got to do it on a consistent basis. Every time you remember the offense, pray. Pray for them like you pray for the person you absolutely love with no contingencies. Consistently. The moment you remember the offense, pray. Then I want you to get to the point where they are a part of your daily prayer regimen. God, I thank you for X, I thank you, Lord, that they are a man and woman of God after your own heart, that everything their hand touches prospers in the name of Jesus, and mean it. There's no way you can pray for somebody like that and still have malice in your heart. Ask me how I know. I did it and I do it consistently. And it feels good over time. Initially, you can be like, ooh, I don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because the thing is their soul. You want to make sure that their soul is covered and cared for. You see, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. And that's the thing. We give principalities faces of the people that offended us. But two things. One, the people couldn't offend us the way they offend us if we didn't love them. Right? And then two, remember that you loved them at one time. You got it? Great question. Great question. Let me know if that brought you some clarity, Robin. Good stuff. Great question. Anybody else? Bianca says, confirms, be angry, but sin not. Yes, B. Like, people don't take the word and rightfully divide it. And so sometimes they beat themselves up about the way they feel. No, feel how you feel. That's where transformation comes in at, because you are acknowledging, I feel this way. You don't want to duke yourself out and say, oh no, it's all good. It's okay. It's not okay. And you have to be real with how you feel. And in that reality, you're able to shift situations. Great stuff. I appreciate that, Robin. Great question. Bianca Brown says, powerful explanation. Thanks be to God, be the glory. Robin says, okay, pray for them out of their presence. When I feel offense, forgive in my heart immediately. Simulate how I am going to act in their presence and make it a part of my daily regimen and mean it. You got it. I love it. This is what it's all about, guys. Real-time revelations to begin to practice and put it into your daily regimens. I love it. You got it, Robin. You got it. I love it. Kristen says, you did it yesterday. Okay, that's good. Now do it again. Yes, Kristen's one of my clients, and I always tell them, you did great, do it again. Because see, here's the thing. When you do something great, the mind remembers, just like it remembers if you do something not so great. And so if you do something great, do it again. That's where the strengthening of that discipline comes in that. I don't care what it is that you're doing. Whatever you do in a repetitive process, in a repetitive state, it gets stronger. It could be combing your hair. It could be brushing your hair. It could be brushing your teeth. It could be anything that you do consistently is developing disciplines. And here's the thing. It can go either way. It can go on a way of not a good discipline, but because you do it consistently, it's strong. I believe Anthony, talked about value and self-confidence. Because you did it so long, it's strong. And guess what? Whatever is the strongest wins. And so you have to begin to develop that discipline muscle on the other side for it to overtake that learned behavior of self-sabotaging, of not believing you're good enough, of not believing that you're worthy. Begin to reverse engineer consistently. Do it again, over and over and over again. I love it, guys. Great question. Bianca says people get beating themselves up, mixed with discipline when it's really abuse. Come on, B. You're talking so good right there. It is really abuse. Discipline. I see people, say one of the areas they do is, I'm going to the gym. They say things like they're going to punish their body and Things like that. That's not discipline. It's exactly what you said. It's punishment. It's abuse. And so if you rightfully disciple your discipline, you won't have to punish anything. You won't have to abuse anything. You're absolutely right, Bianca. I love that. Absolutely love it. And so, again, I'm here to dismantle, disrupt, dissolve the mantra of every new level, there's a new devil. It's not. You are the devil in that new level because you failed to discipline yourself. And if you simply take the time to discipline what is showing up as a devil, as a distraction, you won't make those kind of prophecies on yourself. You won't come in agreement with the illusion of thinking it's something outside of you. Every new level requires a new level of discipline. TD Jake says it best. He said, from 1 to 10, you can be at level 10 and you know everything that from 1 to 10 knows, right? He says, then you go over to 11, you're now at the bottom. You're now at the entry level because you got to get to 20. He's doing it in 10 increments, 10, 20, 30. And so he's saying 11, you're now at entry level and got to get to 20. And then 21, you're now at entry level, got to get to 29, and then so on and so forth. What does that mean? Every new level requires new levels of discipline. You can't be in 11 thinking you're going to hang out with 20 operating in 11 disciplines. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You got to disciple your discipline at every single level. And guess what? That's every single day. I am discipling my disciplines every single day, intentionally in something. One of the things that I ask God is, God, what am I not doing? We all have a laundry list of what we're doing. I don't even ask people that. So what you up to? What are you not up to? What is it that God has called you to do and you keep on disobeying him? Right? I ask very disruptive questions because I want to stimulate your mind to the next dimension of discipline. I don't ask people, how are you today? I ask them, how's your health? You see that? How are you and how is your health? It's completely different. So I want you guys to begin to ask yourself very disruptive questions. I messaged one of my girlfriends this morning and I said, have you did XYZ today? I didn't say have you did it. It was very specific. Have you did XYZ today? Because I don't want you to give me a blanket question because you may have did it in previous days, but I want to know if you're discipling your discipline in that area today. Because what you don't disciple will, you fill in the blank. What you don't disciple will what? What will it do? If you don't do anything with what you know needs to be discipled, what will happen? Whose blood will be on your hands because you failed to disciple your discipline in this particular area? One of my clients has changed her entire life with us working together. You heard that? Working together. She does about 95% of what I ask her to do. Changed her entire life, from her mindset, from people pleasing, from her confidence, from the way that she shows up. And guess what? As a result of that, so are the people around her changing. So when I say whose blood is going to be on your hands as a result of not disciplining in a particular area, that's what I mean. If she didn't choose to disciple her discipline in the time, God says there's a time, a season for everything. So if she didn't disciple her discipline in the time that was necessary, all those people that are attached to her in that season, she would have had to answer for them. Their blood would have been on her hand. Now she gets to stand and hear, well done. Do it again. If y'all didn't know that was coming, do it again. Good is never good enough, because better is always available. And so Bianca says it can bring you to ruin when you don't disciple your discipline. Absolutely, B. Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you guys. I honor your presence. I honor your willingness and your want to. You see, there's a difference with wanting to and willing. A lot of people are willing to live the good life, to live at the next dimension, to do things in a disciplined manner. They're willing, but do they really want to? And so one of the things that I shared with my friend this morning in that message, when I said, have you did XYZ today? I said that you want to make sure that your actions are in alignment with your desires. You see, you got all of these desires, but you have your actions are out of alignment with them. You have no alliance, not just alignment, but you have no alliance with the desires that you want. You know, we're easy to pass it off and say, oh, God gives me the desires of my heart. Do you? Again, there's another disruptive question. Do you give you the desires of your heart? One of the things I've always said is that it's my heart's desire to please God. I said that in my pre-Jesus stage. I said it in my babe stage. I say it now because it's always my desire to please God. But are my actions in alliance and alignment with them? You see, that forgiveness wasn't always in alliance, in an alignment with my desires to please God. That compassion, that trust, that not acting in my own might. How many of y'all act in your own might? You be like, oh God, I got this. I don't need you. You don't say that, but your actions do. And so, do you know the desires of your heart? And do you give yourself the desires of your own heart? The desires of your heart requires new disciplines in this season, in this decade, and in this century. In 2019, God told me, he said, he broke it down just like that. He said that this is the season, this is the decade, and this is the century of never befores. And right after that, not long after, the pandemic hit. One thing after another. And he said, seasons, decades, and centuries. And so if your discipline is in an old season, it's in an old decade, it's in an old century, you won't be able to access the never befores. And you may be thinking, well, how do you operate in centuries of discipline? Your forefathers, your grandparents, what they did, what you picked up. Guess what? Not necessarily by what you see, because some of you guys haven't seen some of your forefathers, your great, great, great grandparents, but you got the DNA of them. And you operate in their disciplines. I decided to be first. Can I get you guys to put that in the comment section? That I have decided to be first. To be first what? To be the first to break through in my life, in my family, in my generation. To do what you know God has called you to do. Will you make that declaration? Yes, Bianca, I have decided to be first. Will you make that declaration that I have decided to be first? You see, God told Abraham to get away from his kinfolk. What does that mean? Again, let's rightfully divide the word of truth. That simply means get away from the familiar. Get away from those old wineskins. Get away from those old disciplines. Get away from, I know, when you ain't doing nothing, so you don't know nothing about that I know. That's what he was saying when he said, get away. People have reduced it, including me, until I began to hang out with God and he showed me different. People have reduced it to family, but God is saying and said, I'm talking about anything familiar. Leave it behind. Old cannot sustain new. God is calling you higher. Will you agree with him? Please, I beckon you, just agree with God. I love how God said, try me. Y'all know we say try me in a different context, but it all means the same. Try me. Try God in developing and discipling your new discipline for this new dimension. Some of y'all have already entered it. Try God. Kicking, screaming. And here's the thing. You have gotten where you are by winging it and willing your way through. Me too. I've had some winging seasons and I've had some willing seasons. And willing isn't always a bad thing until it's not, or until it's the only thing you got. But if you must will your way through, use that principle in your discipline. Will your way through in the discipline for now, and then you won't have to later. But if you must, take that principle and apply it to discipline. Apply it to discipline. Robin says, I have decided to be first. Now, here's the thing with declarations. It's going to look for action. He said to decree and declare a thing. You got to have action with your decrees and your declarations. And you ain't got to make nothing up. Begin to disciple where you are, and you'll be first in those areas that you know God is calling you to be. Your family, your friends, your community is waiting for you. My community, Prince George's County, was waiting on me to step in the place of health and wellness. As a result of me stepping in and not looking to the left, looking to the right, saying, somebody got to do something. I decided to be the somebody to do it. And as a result, other communities benefited from it. Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Fairfax County, from the north, the south, the east, and the west, came to the community that was depending on me. And so it's not just about you. This discipline that God is having you grow into has so many people attached to it. And guess what? It includes you. But God uses people. In fact, he gave us dominion over the earth, where he himself can't enter in without our permission. Do you realize how much power and authority that is? Show me in your discipline. Don't just tell me, yes, I see, yes, I know, yes, I understand. No, show me that you understand the power within. Show me. Show me what you're working with. We have dominion, guys. Let's act like it. Let's dominate in our discipline in these new dimensions. Every new level requires what? I want to hear y'all. Y'all in y'all car listening. I want y'all to type it in the feed. Every new level requires a new level of discipline. There's not a new devil. The devil is not omnipresent. He can't be more than one place at a time. And so if there's seemingly a devil, it's in you. It's that thing that you failed to discipline. And guess what? It's opportunity. I tell my clients, when situations rise up, it's opportunity, not opposition. Because now you know for sure. It's one thing with like, I think. But when that opportunity shows up, take it by force. Discipline it. I love you guys. I am so proud of your decision to disciple your discipline. As you continue to disciple your discipline, you'll go to new dimensions without stress, without strain, and without struggle. And so I'm not even talking about material things. Not at all. That stuff will come. I'm concerned about your soul. And so when you develop disciplines within, nothing, absolutely nothing will be able to get you off and keep you off. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things will be added. I like to say multiply. God operates in multiplication. Remember, steps versus dimensions, leaps. That's the multiplication. The steps are added, right? It's addition. The leaps, the next dimensions, are multiplication. I like multiplying. But, not but, we all got to start somewhere. And be good with your somewhere. Be good with your somewhere. And guess what? Where you are is exactly where God called you to be. Don't you second guess yourself another minute. You simply need to disciple and develop your discipline. That's it. You're exactly where you belong. You are worthy of where you are. They know they need you. The invitation is their validation. It's not validation for you because you already know. When people show up in my space and they want to invite me to different places, I say, I've been expecting you. I'm not surprised. I'm not like, oh wow. I've been expecting you. That's where and how I want you guys to be. I've been expecting you. Put that in the comment section. I've been expecting you. Disciple your discipline. Everything starts there. Remember, guys, better is always available. Don't leave it on the table. Don't leave your better on the table. Don't settle for good, because good is never good enough. It's never good enough. So disciple your discipline at the next dimension. How, Kristen? Again. Over and over and over again. I want you guys to walk away with multiple things, but these things in particular. Every new level requires a new level of discipline. Disciple your discipline consistently over and over and over again. When you get one thing that you've mastered, master it again. There are different levels and different leaps to mastery. Do it again and again and again. I'm Jatasha Mayo, the execution strategist. I help high achieving professionals go from good to great in every area of their lives. They're already great. People that come into my space are already great. I help them own and add the ER, greater. And so go be greater, guys. You're already great. Greatness, greaterness awaits you. And it's in your discipline at the next dimension. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Peace. God's peace.